This conference will now be recorded.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to welcome everyone. We have a great pool tonight, so thank you all for coming. First item on the agenda is our approval of the minutes from the regular meeting, January 28th, 2025.
To approve.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Under announcements, Shannon, thank you for being with us tonight. Carol is spending the day with her husband. It's his birthday, so thank you for being here, Shannon.
You're welcome.
A couple of other things. I have a couple of announcements on things that were added to the agenda. Item number 6 will be engineering services agreement with VH Engineering, and we will be doing that at the end. But number 5, the proclamation of Tri-Kappa Week, we're going to move that up to the beginning so that these ladies that are with us don't have to stay for the whole meeting. Also, I want to remind everyone that we have our chamber dinner invitation for Thursday, February 27th. This is their annual meeting and dinner, and we need to get reservations in. So I'll need to know from council a yay or nay before you leave tonight if you're planning on attending. Steve will be a guest speaker, and actually they've invited NDOT to come and speak on the Orange Street project. So that will be interesting as well. And lastly, before we get started, I want to send out a kudos to our attorney and his law firm. We recently had a situation where we were going to have to send an officer to Allen County Court, and we were able to stop that from happening. And he acknowledged our excellent police work and aggressive approach taken by the Fort Wayne litigation team. Will save thousands of dollars in office preparation and participating in the hearing of this civil matter. And so having you new on board, we really appreciate that. Thank you so very much.
Wonderful opportunity, and I'm thankful I got to work with Scott and his deputy. They were great. So.
Okay, we will move on to our item of proclamation and declaration for Tri-Kappa Week. So just a little bit, I've got 3 members, and I'm also a Tri-Kappa member that are here with us tonight. Rita Hoover, and Rita served the Albion chapter for 39 years. Myself, 38 years. Angie Lordy, 35 years. And Jonna Sloan, 31 years. And I think Jonna has just a couple of things she wants to say about our local chapter, and then I might fill in a couple of blanks, and we'll do our proclamation.
Okay, so our local chapter is the Eta Theta chapter, and we were chartered in November of 1983. We have 26 active members now, and we do a number of service projects like roadside cleanup on 9 North. We sponsor the bunny breakfast each Easter for kids with the little pancake breakfast. We put up Christmas decorations around town, and we've done that for a long time, and they used to be on the courthouse lawn. Now they are scattered around, but they look really nice for people coming into town. We also support the Riley Cheer Guild. We sponsor bingo a couple times a month. And then we deliver cheer bags, which we have cheer bags on the table. And we send those out about every February for our shut-ins. And a unique thing about Tri-Kappa is it is located only in the boundaries of Indiana, and there are almost 7,000 members in the state of Indiana. Anything else?
We do have a statewide Tri-Kappa Week every year, and we have only asked to do this a couple of times. I think this year we're kind of extra excited. The state president is Lori Bloom, who is a Kendallville chapter member, so it's really exciting to have it in Noble County. And next month, in April, state convention is going to be held in Fort Wayne, and that has never happened before. And we're also statewide preparing for our 125th anniversary next year. So we've got a lot going on, and so we just thought this would be something different that we don't normally do. And Matt, I believe, is doing a little article about us. 2 weeks ago, the members put together these cheer bags. They go to the elderly. We call them our cheer shut-in bags. We have done as many as 100 when we had the nursing home, but I think we put together 60 and deliver them throughout the town and some residents that are in area nursing homes that have roots in Albion. So anyway, at this time, I'd like to read the proclamation. A proclamation declaring the week of February 16th through the 22nd, 2025 as Tri Kappa Week, and honoring the spirit and hard work of the Albion Eta Theta chapter of Tri Kappa, which has been in existence since November 12th, 1983. Whereas Tri Kappa is an Indiana 501c3 organization founded in 1901 and is a philanthropic organization, sorority organization consisting of 7,000 women in 140 active and 82 associate chapters in the state of Indiana. And whereas Tri Kappa has a three-pronged mission to bring women into a close, unselfish relationship for the promotion of charity, culture, and education. And whereas Tri Kappa has annually donated over $1.5 million to charitable causes and organizations within the state of Indiana, such as James Whitcomb Riley Children's Hospital, Ronald McDonald House, Indiana Mental Health Association, ARC, and the Indiana Special Olympics. Those are just a few examples. And whereas the Albion Eta Theta chapter of Tri Kappa, founded on November 12, 1983, supports numerous Albion-based charitable causes and organizations, and the town of Albion wishes to honor this organization and the spirit and hard work of its members. And therefore, it is proclaimed that the town of Albion, Indiana, declares the week of February 16th through the 22nd, 2025 as Tri Kappa Week in appreciation of the Albion chapter, Eta Theta chapter of Tri Kappa. And therefore, it be resolved by the town council of the town of Albion, Noble County, state of Indiana, that this proclamation shall be in full force and effect from and after this 11th day of February, 2025. I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to accept the proclamation declaration for Tri Kappa Week.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
You said charity, culture, and what was the third one?
Education, charity, and culture.
Education.
Okay. Thank you, ladies. We're going to take a very, very quick picture, and then we'll continue on with.
You're gonna have to go up there, girl.
No, I think we're going to go back.
Well, take the bags. Take the bags.
Take the bags.
Take the bags. That way you can get them in your picture. Oh, yeah. They look like they're really full.
They are decorated by, was it West Noble?
West Noble Elementary
West
School,
Noble.
Amanda Custer, who lives in Albion, is a teacher there, and she joined Tri Kappa last year.
Does it cost money to join Tri Kappa?
$30 a year membership.
So it, like Lions Club, it costs to be a lion. You know what I mean?
More than 30.
It's $60-some. I think it's like $67.
While they're taking their photo, we can enroll you if you'd like.
She's in a lot of clubs.
I'm in a lot. Yes, it costs money, but that's for veterans though.
Or the son. I'm a son of Legion.
Do I have my eyes open? I know.
We all do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. This is
My
Angie.
Legion rider, I'm a Legion
Then
rider,
John,
so
and then
I have to
Linda.
pay my
I
dues
gave
and
him a
auxiliary.
cheat sheet with your
Then I
names.
gotta pay
Oh,
my-
that you're in.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay,
Congratulations.
You want to remember?
Thanks, lady. You want to put it on that little table?
Yes, there's a mailbox out there sitting outside. You just drop them right in the mailbox.
Thank you.
And then they have a flag burning ceremony, usually a couple times a year.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks,
you,
ladies.
See you soon, Rita, walking.
Enjoy retirement.
See you when it
Shauna.
falls out.
Very good dog, you.
Well, it was very good.
Okay, we will move on to open discussion. Anyone have any? If not, we'll move on to our department head reports. Park and Cemetery, Casey.
The only thing on the cemetery updated that Phil Gibson's gonna be not retiring, resigning. He's gonna be moving to Fort Wayne, be closer to his mother-in-law that's 95. So we're gonna lose a worker. We'll get that advertised internally and try to get that figured out before spring hits us. Any questions on cemetery? We're gonna be getting everything ready soon. So.
I only have one thing I want to talk about. You're talking about they're gonna make the sidewalk at Owen Park street level instead of being way down, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're gonna.
I'm gonna talk about the park
Okay,
report,
okay.
but go on, Chris, what you're talking about.
Well, they're gonna take the guardrail out, which totally scares me to death.
Scott and Court, well, were
Yep.
you there?
Corey was there.
Corey was not there.
Well, anyways, everybody's kind of in the loop, but I think Scott can kind of talk about that.
Okay.
Scott, do you want to talk about the meeting?
Ken, you want that now?
Do you want that now?
It doesn't have to be. That's my only question on your whole report that I've highlighted.
Steve was also.
Oh,
there
yeah,
too,
Steve,
though.
I'm sorry. Steve,
That's
do you
what-
want to talk about
Don't
it?
forget Steve.
Okay, Scott addressed the guardrail. There was a lot of things addressed.
Yes.
And they were responsive NDOT, so we don't have anything to worry about right now.
I don't think they were aware of the origination of that guardrail and why it was put up. And also, they're not necessarily bringing the entire sidewalk up to ground level. They're only kind of arching it according to design in kind of the middle area, right over the apparatus that they're replacing, the structure they're replacing. They're gonna bring that up to level. But the ends, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, are really gonna stay pretty much where they're at.
Yeah, there's actual design work. It's hard to actually read unless it's blown up. But they were unaware of the accidents. So that was addressed. They were unaware of the county tile going underneath that structure. And I did call Randy Sexton and he came down. And so there's going to be involvement with something there.
What you actually see going under the structure is not the county tile. It's down below that yet.
Yes.
That's more of a runoff tile that's going under the structure. But Randy was talking about, what, 18 inches down yet? 2 foot down, something like that.
Yes.
Below what you're actually seeing when you look over the edge.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure somebody was on that, and it sounds like you guys are all over it.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of people involved in it. And there was 20,
Quite a few
20
NDOT
and-
people.
A few people.
almost too many, but crazy. Any questions on the cemetery? And now I'll just roll right into the park. So the park, the only really update I have is I want to thank Scott. We got Ligtel hooked up. I don't even know what that donation was. I'd like to do a thank you at some point with Ligtel because they donated. I think they bored underneath the bridge 3 times, and they finally got it. It was, sand was collapsing, but anyways, the internet is up and going. We will have a monthly fee as normal, but Scott helped get the computer going. All the emails are working. So I've been organizing all the files, so it's very nice to have one location. I'm pulling old files out of this office back here, organizing everything, and anything that has to do with the State Board of Account, we have Fireproof Safe here with the minutes and everything. So we've got a home for everything. So, and organized. So I think I did have some pictures in my report on that, but Scott's still working on a few things, but we'll get there, and it's very, very appreciative. So other than that, had our first committee meeting, went very, very well. For the playground, we're going to try to get a name for it at some point. Yeah, a lot of good stuff happening. Any questions? A lot going on. Probably plowing Foot Street next couple days, maybe. Maybe we'll only get a couple inches.
Anyone have any other questions for Casey? Okay, thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
We will move on to street and cemetery. Corey.
Excuse me, for the month of January, we had 2 services out at the cemetery. As far as street department, I'm sure you've seen Kevin and Craig out. We've done a lot of salting, not a whole heck of a lot of plowing, but I think that may change here in the next couple of days. I'm just trying to get stuff ready for springtime. Other than that, that's it. Nobody has any questions for me.
Are you still planning on trying to pave some alleys this year?
I would like to do that as an add-on this year once once we hopefully get the bid and contracts awarded.
Just check.
Any updates on the CCMG 2025 application?
We have not heard back yet.
But it did clear and all that's good. Now it's just a matter of selection.
That's right. Now it's a matter of competition with all the other entities that apply for the monies.
But did you say they were going to plan on announcing that a little earlier than they?
Yes, they were hoping to have decisions made in early February. So we're approaching the point where,
Could be any day.
we hope to hear from them. And because their intent was they want to push the money out sooner so that all the groups could get the projects done sooner, and just they wanted a bit of a faster cycle.
Okay. Any other questions for Corey? No? All right, thank you, Corey. We will move on to water and wastewater.
Does the council have a chance to look over the council report and have any questions? No. The one thing I want to bring up right now is we lost another pump at the lower ponds, and it's in for repair, so I don't know what it's going to cost. But I think between Steve and I, we can justify that. And then later on, I'd like to talk about the engineering for the pressure filters. That's about all I got to say.
You want to wait until that comes on the agenda, is that what you're saying? Okay.
Yes.
Anybody have any questions for Terry? No? Man, you guys are off the hook tonight. For the time being, anyway. Thank you, Terry. See you, Casey.
Thank you. Sorry, Casey.
Okay. Any old business? All right, we will now move on to new business. First item on the agenda, the Public Works Committee has organized a presentation on our options for roof replacement.
This is, as you probably know, Austin Pappenbrock from Garland, who has been working with for innumerable number of years, I would say, keeping the roof in good shape. And he's been updating us recently, the Public Works Committee. And as I would turn it over to either Zane or Chris, if you want to add anything.
Look at Zane. You guys all have this big packet of information, which is something that Austin provided the Public Works Committee with. So Zane asked him at our last Public Works meeting to be here tonight and to explain some stuff and to show us some stuff.
Yeah, so what it boils down to, we have a big decision to make. And by big, I mean money amount wise, big decision to make. The shape of a roof. Chris and I could only speak to certain degrees of what's going on, so we asked Austin to kind of come in. Number one, talk about the current shape of the roof. He's been limping this along for
7 years.
7 years now, and addressing things that need addressed to keep the roof structurally sound right now. One of the things that he did is he narrowed down what he had brought to the Public Works Committee. There was a lot more choices. So we as a Public Works Committee thought that these three solutions would be best served. Keep in mind, there is cheaper alternatives, but with cheaper alternatives come, I guess, shorter timelines of how long the roof is going to last. So we elected these three. If you guys want something else, Austin can certainly provide that for us. And the other thing that he did is he kind of did a cost breakdown just to show how roof pricing has went up over the past years. So.
And it's not going to go down. So the, what have we got it broke up into, Zane? Three sections? Right, so break it down in 3 sections and pay 1 section a year, or do it all at once and save yourself the inflation. So that's where we,
So 2 decisions tonight, what roof we're gonna go with, meaning, there's different cost variations. And then are we going to do a 3-stage approach, starting with the most neglected area first and then working our way to the finish or completion? Or are we gonna do it all at once? So that's kind of where our discussion is right now.
and Austin has got that kind of broke down on paper of what historically the rise in cost would be per year, and you just have to make your decision based on that and how much money we have and what funds we're taking it out of.
Sounds easy enough.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for letting me come in. I've had the opportunity to work with the town since 2018. Troy Gaff was superintendent down at Central Noble at the time. We were doing some projects, and I was sitting in Rotary at Cherubusco, and I got a phone call, and Troy just kept calling, and he knew I was in Rotary, and he said, you guys had an issue where a bunch of water fell through the ceiling, and we came, and there was a storm coming. So since that time, this report will give you some snapshots from over the years. I just tried to simplify 100 pages of documents that we have down to some solutions, some photos of what's up there. This document right here, the 2 pages, because I have worked with this building, know it very intimately, I was able to go back to the first budget that I created in 2019. And that's showing you just kind of the cost. Everything's going up, especially eggs right now. So the first budget I gave, I believe, was to Stefan at the time, was about $906,000. And you see today where we are. The 2025 project, actually, even since the committee meeting, I've now bid out and had several jobs awarded in the area. You'll notice that the 2025 project is actually a little bit higher than even when we had our meeting, just because I'm trying to show you what's actually being bid with contractor numbers right now. So all of these are budgets, including your budgetary. If you do decide to go forward, regardless of which section, I will help facilitate that entire process, start to finish. I did so with Sheriff Max over here when we did that facility. We've now done 4 or 5 projects at Central Noble. We're actually in the middle of one right now that Mother Nature, she switched on us pretty hard. But there's one that started and will finish in the spring, summer over there.
Are these figures all for the complete project?
Yes. So on this document, I just looked at the lump sum cost from this document. The breakdown spreadsheet, you're going to see I took your facility and I divided it into 3. You have 3 primary roof sections. The small awnings over the entryways, or the very small roof section 6 off of the north of the building, which the roof map is on page 2 and on the back page of your budgetary. Small roof sections need to be completed with larger. You would not like the cost if you had to have a contractor come out for 2 days and do a roof of that size. So that's giving you the options. I did not break down pricing based on individual projects. You know, there's always some setup fees that a contractor will add to their bid, but that's to give you the best budgetary figure I could utilizing square footage and market pricing.
What we like about Austin is he's local. He lives in Cherubusco, am I correct?
I have an Avila address. I live in Noble County.
He's on site. He's the supervisor.
Of the actual physical
project. That's correct.
Yeah, so once the project starts, the documents that we would put together, you're going to see me referred to as an owner's representative. So I will be on your facility. On the paper, it's going to say 3 out of 5 working days. You're probably going to see me here every day. And the idea is me and or Noah, my manager, who also has an Avila address. We live in the sticks out here. We're coming on your behalf, working with Corey, anybody that wants to join us. But we're meeting with the contractor. We're looking at the work they've completed. We're talking about progression schedules. We're looking at the great stuff they're doing. We look at things that might need to be improved or changed, and we're documenting that. And then what we're doing is every time we're here, we're creating a progress report with photos. We're willing to share that with the entire team, any architect that's involved, the contractor, you. We'll share that on a daily basis, or after about a week of really boring reports, you're going to ask us to probably save those for Fridays. But the whole idea is anyone that wants to see that report can see the progression and how it's occurring all the way through the final completion. I will be also making recommendations to you on payments. So, you know, with the project of this size, you're going to set up a payment schedule. And a lot of times when those contractors submit those, if you don't have someone that's intimate with the process, you don't know to approve or to decline based on completion schedules. So I'm glad to review those and make recommendation to you before any types of payments, especially at the end. When there's a retainer, it's critical that we do not pay retainage until everything is 100% signed off, reviewed, and the warranties being hand delivered to you. So one other thing I will talk about on warranties is the systems here. When I show the life expectancy solutions up here, these are long-term warranties, but these specific systems will outlive their warranty. I think that's important to know. There's a lot of systems out there today that people will put warranties on paper that are longer than the actual life of the system. So I would give you an example. What was it? 7 years ago, I started working up here. Your roof was in bad shape. We put together a plan and did some immediate repairs. We've done preventative maintenance. They've done a great job keeping that roof clean and then reporting leaks. We estimate your roof to be about 21, 22 years old. We can't find the formal documents, but this is a 15-year roof. So it actually kind of performed. As you'll see on your life cycle comparison, that's the hardest or most expensive roof to own over time, because now you're looking at spending over $1.5 million, where these other systems would be performing at least twice that long for you. So,
Also, for Kirk's sake, first and foremost, and all the other council members, can you touch on a little bit on the guaranteed pricing and the contract that's held in Racine, Wisconsin?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, Racine, Wisconsin solicited bids nationally with the help of Omnia, which is a national, I guess it's a national cooperative. It was pre-bid, if you will. They looked for partners. So I believe Omnia represents around 40 or 50 different contracts. They're kind of the marketing piece. They're representing all of them, bringing them. So with Omnia, we were selected as the building envelope partner. They looked at all aspects, everything from pricing to service, engineering, the whole offering. With that, public entities can utilize their contract by being an Omnia member. So Grasshopper mowers are on there. You get the price. I believe Train is a member. I know Train is a member, and Garland is for building envelope. With that, what it allows you to do is basically purchase in two different manners. It allows you to buy the materials as a commodity and bid your labor. So you're purchasing the materials as if you would purchase paper. There's 700 pages of line item pricing and services. But it also allows you to purchase the project as a turnkey project. Basically, what you're doing is by utilizing it, you're having us solicit the contractor bids and put the package together for you. We're still collecting contractor bids and present that to you through that project, through the procurement option. So it is heavily, heavily used in Indiana. It's heavily used in the United States. But the county purchased the sheriff's roof through that, and they purchased all of their HVAC and mechanical upgrades through that. Train had their own project contract. We had our own, but we worked together. We did that strategically because neither one of us had to carry each other's cost. So we had them separated. Central Noble has utilized Omnia since going back to almost, I think, 2018. Whitley County heavily uses it. West Noble utilizes it, on and on around here. Any information you would like beyond what you've already found, I'd be glad to share that with you, or we could set up a call. But it is a heavily used contract across the United States.
So it's a QPA is what you're talking about. I'm guessing that's what's certified in Indiana for a quantity purchase agreement. And it allows for people that are certified to be able to do that through the state bid process or police cars and that type of thing. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but no. This is not considered a state term or state project offering. I know the state does have them for buses for schools and police, but it is recognized not only by the state but each county as well. It's race. Again, in our particular case, my contract is held by Racine, Wisconsin. Omnia, and someone from Omnia could explain this way better. I have always, my best take on Omnia is, if you looked at them, as they're the marketing piece to help get out those, is it pronounced MICPA contracts, and share them. So by signing up with Omnia, you're automatically sharing their contracts without having to reach out to a representative from Racine and get you assigned to it. They're doing it on your behalf.
And we don't have to maybe have all this discussion now, but I need to better understand it because what I hear you saying, and I'm looking at the public works statutes, and of course it references some of these things you've talked about, but whether this company, Garland, is a project manager and you're spitting out the materials and the labor, or I guess I'm not fully, it doesn't say, it sounds like there's a budget, but who is the town contracting with? There's got to be a contract.
Yes, absolutely. So with the two options, great question. With the two options, if you were purchasing material only through Omnia, we provide you a Garland Omnia proposal for materials with a total itemized, and then you have a contract with the awarded contractor for the labor and non-essential. So anything that's not on that materials list.
So just so that I understand, your company is supplying, at least the proposal is, you're supplying all the materials and you're bidding out the labor and you're managing the construction, but you're not providing any labor at all.
We're not providing any labor, and we're providing the project oversight as a courtesy as the project for the warranty.
So what
yes.
you're suggesting is that you do not need to bid out the materials.
That's correct. They've already been bid out. They were bid out on a national level. Yes.
So I would need to see all of that.
Absolutely.
They asked me an opinion because right now I hear all this, but
yes.
I haven't seen any of it. I really don't care what Central Noble did or anything.
Correct.
What this town did.
I would get you all those documents, and I'd be able to reference you to other attorneys. We finished the downtown library in Fort Wayne. That was about a $9 million. We went through.
I'm familiar with that project. So.
Oh.
So Pete Mallers is my partner.
Pete, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
You have everything you need with Pete. We went through, it's this deep. And the best part is when he came out, he was more than happy with it. And they did both that HVAC. They had 2 million in HVAC, 2 million in solar, and the roofing. And they did it with both versions. Train did the turnkey. We did the material only.
What you did with Pete is what I'm gonna be asking you.
I didn't know you were Pete's partner.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well, we just jumped about 2 miles ahead. I was literally going to have you talk to Pete.
Isn't that convenient?
Because I've done a lot of I've went through a lot of details with individuals, but never to that level. So yeah.
Pierce Mallard is our law firm. Pete Mallard's hired me about 35 years ago. Yes.
You guys are in great shape. The library keeps them busy over there. Yeah.
Perfectly great. So we don't
Wonderful.
have to go this now. I just wanted to understand what you were saying, what sounds like what you were saying, what I thought you were saying.
Yes.
So what he's basically saying, because I wanted to answer Daryl's question to me, which is, do we have to bid this out? If what he is saying, I have no reason to dispute it, is accurate, then you don't bid out the materials because it's something that is an exception to the public works statute. I just need to understand and appreciate that so I can give you assurances that that is the case.
Yep, that's exactly right. My card is right inside the. Yep, call anytime.
Austin, did you bring the stuff that Zane was wanting you to bring? The physical.
Get those right here. Sorry, they're not donuts.
Yeah.
More exciting.
And before go ahead and dig it out, but can you briefly explain, there's 3 cost options, just put the
Yeah.
price tag on those.
So
the
okay, so
years of life.
after the meeting that we had and with Corey, we determined you guys had ruled out one of those. So on your summary, I listed the 2 that we had left, and those are the ones I brought. On the life cycle costs, so this is just a really big giant spreadsheet that I dump a bunch of information in, taxes, what municipalities, and it spits out a comparison over whatever system life we want to look at. So I put in a 40-year comparison, being that one of these is a 40-year system, and it's comparing in gray the cost to purchase the roof, and in blue it's looking at what is the cost to own the roof and replace that roof within that time frame. The additional pages are a lot of numbers that show you how that broke down. So that's where you're looking at, again, sometimes the cheapest roof to buy is definitely not the cheapest roof for you to own. The other thing to keep in mind, though, beyond that is think of the durability and or what are you dealing with annually. Just because something has a warranty doesn't mean that it might not leak or have issues if we have a hailstorm and or birds. I deal with birds a lot. So
If I could insert something, maybe hopefully for clarification, if you don't mind. So there's, Austin has shown 3 options: a 15/20 year roof option, which is the cheapest initially at just under $1 million, but over its life, it's going to be a $6 million cost. Then the second option up is a 30-year roof life, and we shell out $1.4 million. But over its life, it would cost $4.5 million. And then you get to the highest option, which is a 40-year life. We're shelling out about $200,000 more than the 30-year life. So we're going to shell out $1.6 million. And over its life, it's just that figure, like $139,000 more in cost. It would be $1.8 million. It's total cost over 40 years. So that's it in a nutshell. I hope that helped a little bit. Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, so I put together a couple samples. The one on your sheet that's listed as a 30-year, that is a 2-ply modified system. They're SBS modified asphalt sheets. It has a base and a cap. All we're showing here with the 4 squares is different surfacing types that sheet can have. You would not leave it bare, but this is to show you where it starts. Granulated surface with a reflective coating, It can be completed with a flood and light gravel. The gravel keeps the sun from drying the UVs out. This is what's at the sheriff's department. This is a great solution for your facility, as this is a very good solution. The 40-year, and by the way, I can leave these if you guys want to geek out on low soap roofing. Yeah, so on the sheet,
30-year, correct?
this is what I utilized for the 30-year budgeting. It uses interply adhesives that are also a waterproofing. The sheets are each 80 mils thick. So to give you in comparison, I think you have 45 mils of total roofing on your building right now. So the second system is utilizing a similar SBS base sheet, but we're putting on a fleece back key membrane. So it is different than the membrane you have on your roof. Please let me assure you of that. This sheet's around 80 mil thick, over 60 mil of just the waterproof surfacing in that with your scrim. So
What's the, what purpose is the fleece?
to adhere. So it's going to adhere to the sheet. It's going to allow stuff to actually absorb in. Your flashings, which you have very little around the perimeter, but on your curbs, they're actually non-fleece. That keeps the weight down. But yeah, what she's referring to is the fleece, which is like a carpet. It allows it to absorb the adhesives that we're using. It can either be done in foam or it can be done in hot asphalt. If you have a crew good enough to keep it clean. This sheet it's already proving to be one of the longest lasting sheets using DuPont's key envelope in it. It's a great product. It's also the system that we utilize when someone's putting solar on, not only because of its durability, but because of the reflectivity that it provides back. So
You said that's 80 mil?
it's an 80 mil base sheet. With this sheet is, you would technically call it a 60 mil waterproofing surface. It actually measures closer to 80 by the time it's got the scrim in it. But the importance is what's waterproofing, right? So 60, and again, I believe the membrane you have on your building total in all protection is 45 mil. So again,
Where does this fit in that model? This here. Is that,
this is this sheet right here.
okay.
I wanted to be able to show you. So
Thank you.
you have 2 layers of polyiso insulation with a membrane currently. We had that scanned by Infrared Roofing Technologies. You had them scan that. That's to identify if it's wet or if it's dry. It was found that it's overwhelmingly dry, which is awesome. Even though you have leaks, you have a steel deck, which allows the water to go through. By being dry, you can reutilize that. So you would refasten that to code, add 1 additional layer, add a recovery board, and then your new roof system.
The prices that you've estimated are based on reutilizing some of that, most of
Yeah.
the what do you call it? The
Polyiso insulation.
the insulating board. Yep. Pass this around.
Oh, of course.
This was way heavier than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah. And this system includes using recovery board, which is
Right.
critical to protecting this
Right,
membrane.
I wasn't a fan of the gravel because of the weight.
Correct.
And that particular piece that you're putting back in the box is the Garland 30-year SBS system.
That's correct.
But the top does it, he's showing you more than one option.
I understand.
But it's the same roofing system. It's just the surface of what it would look like when we're done.
Garland 40
Yes,
is what you're handing around.
that's correct.
In thickness wise, what is the difference if you can compare the two or not?
With the SBS modified, you're going to have a minimum of 160 mils. With that system, you're going to have, again, depending on which value you use, but let's just go with waterproofing, you're going to have 140 mils. It is lighter. We don't have structural. I mean, with this, anytime that you're adding over an additional 5% of weight to a structure, you need to have a structural analysis. Always. We want to make sure you stay compliant with insurance as well. That system pretty much takes that question out of it.
And that system has no four choices of covering. That is the cover.
That is the cover. The membrane is the cover.
While they're looking, I have a question. It just relates to the documentation of this one. It's just a marketing thing, but I don't understand why this document says no warranty, but yet we're selling a 30 to 40-year roof. I mean, what's the, where's the,
What document says no warranty?
this sheet, unless I don't read it correctly, it says warranty, no.
Currently,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
okay.
This document, this,
Like, who gives a 40-year roof with no warranty?
no, so when I go, yeah,
This is
so,
current. I'm sorry.
yeah, I apologize.
No, it's just.
Most of my clients, like a school, would have 100 roof sections. So we go through and audit every roof they have to give them their current status. Yes. And we share our warranty up front. It's 1 page. It's not 30 pages of warranty. You see everything we cover and everything we don't. Acts of the Lord down to, if you let your brick wall fall down underneath but yeah, all of those are readily available for you.
I appreciate it. I assumed there would be some document somewhere, I didn't understand why it said no warranty, but it's 40 years.
No, I help my clients manage their existing warranty. So if you had them, we would have a column that showed the warranty number as well. Yep. I apologize for the confusion.
I'm glad to know.
That's our first question, what's the warranty, and the second
All right.
question, where's the money coming from?
That's right. What's the warranty and where's the money?
All right. Well, that's why you're a good team.
Well, I think, Austin has done everything that we asked him to do. Right, Zane?
Do you guys have any further questions?
Not at all. Yeah.
So really, the decisions, like Zane said, you have to decide what roof you want and how many phases are you gonna make it? And where's the money coming from?
Money coming from.
And Zane, I think Zane and I agree to disagree because I think that I'm of the opinion, to cough up the money. And he's of the opinion that he thought we might be better served phasing it out. But we need to know what money we have.
That's where my question more or less was with Carol and, what's feasible for us to do?
Right. What
Is
makes
it-
more sense?
Yeah, is it more sensical to go ahead and draw all the money out and do it right now and save the money, or is it better for our budget to do it in a 3-year process and then, we have to pay more to do it
Plus,
that way?
I'm not sure where Carol would want to take. Do you have any idea where she would want the money to come from?
No, I do not. We have not had any specific discussion on this, so that would have to be deferred, that decision.
Because we all know what monies we have. We get a list of what monies we have. But, there's, this building houses all of our departments. So I wonder if she would want to take some from each department, some from the general fund, and some from TIF. So I think that that's the next discussion we need to have.
I think we should decide here tonight then, like what roof.
We would like.
Yeah, and then the follow-up would be with Carol on payment for the roof that we think would be best.
Right, but we also have to know about the 1 to 3 year gig. And who's gonna make that decision? We're gonna wait till Carol weighs in to make that decision?
I'd like to ask one question, if I may, of Austin on this idea of phasing versus doing it at once. I'm under the impression that in most things, in fact, if you phase it, that you you have, instead of one setup cost that the contractor is going to charge you for, there's 3 setup costs. So in other words, each individual phase is going to kind of jack the price higher than it would be if you did it all at once. I don't know to what degree, but in that you might get a quantity discount price of sorts with a larger project, knowing that,
Yeah,
it's kind of a plum thing for any contractor that would get that award.
the incentive is volume, that they can get up there and do larger areas. How much that annual is, I would say on a project this size, your building is tall. They're going to have a crane or at least several lulls. They're going to have a lull on site the whole project. So depending on the contractor that's awarded, they may have to rent that. Crane, most of my contractors utilize cranes. So that's like burning money when you bring a crane out. But that's just, if we assumed a number of $10,000 that they're going to put in for transportation to the job site, setup, safety, that would repeat. I think the other one to really look at is, and no one has that crystal ball on what inflation is, but for your one document to show over the 7 years, I used 7%. That was always kind of the rule of thumb. COVID threw that out the window, but we're back to about 6.5. So I just stuck with 7. So whatever those numbers are for the line items that you don't replace in 25, I would tell you to roughly use 7%. That seems to catch both labor and materials right now. I don't know what tariffs are or are not going to do. We manufacture in the United States, but it's going to impact everything. So
Can you, to address Steve's question, to get a real answer, not that you're not giving them a real answer, but I get it, it's speculative. Can you bid alternate?
absolutely.
Alternate, where you have one mobilization.
You're reading my mind. Yeah. So what I would do there is, regardless, even if you said we only want to do section 1, I would ask you if it would be okay to create base bid 1 with alternate 1 and alternate 2. And now what we're doing is we're having them show the number, but it would be for 25. Once we have those numbers, then you could say, okay, now we can use a multiplier of 1.07. The other thing we can do on that bid, if you would allow, is let them show their base bid, alternate 1 and 2, and then have an add deduct. And what that would allow you to do is, now I would tell them, okay, show me your absolute best number if they were able to do the whole thing in 2025.
That's a perfect.
And that shows. So,
And then the statute, I think, if I'm not mistaken, says if there's a change order, you can go down, of course, but you can go up 20%. So if there's some weird thing that you figure out later, they have the ability to, without having to go bid it out again.
correct.
So,
which these sections are probably too large for a change order,
okay.
being that these 3 are almost equal in size. But it would allow you to select an alternate as long as it didn't change the awarded contractor. Yep.
I like it. I don't know. But,
Yep.
yeah.
They're going to be here. They're going to be doing a pre-bid. We've already got the building takeoff. The design is the same. It just requires a couple more hours for their estimating. They would be glad to do it with hopes that you change your mind and take those additional sections. So, yeah, that's exactly what I would recommend.
I don't even think we need to know where the money's coming from to do that.
Well, I think all Austin probably needs is to know what roof we decide on, and then he can.
Yes, I mean, it would be best if you did. We don't want to create a lot of work for contractors. You could always pick a basis design and then have an add deduct, but you are doubling you're not quite doubling, but you're getting close to doubling their work if we're going to have alternates and a decision on the roof. But it is something we could discuss. The one thing I would tell you while you're trying to decide is I don't think you'll go wrong with either system. I live here. I wouldn't have given you an option that I don't think is fitting for your building. If it comes down to dollars today, then you have a system that's slightly less. If you're thinking the best investment, I think that third-party life cycle will help you identify that The 40-year does have lower maintenance, and it does have a longer life expectancy.
The 40-year was the fleece backed, right?
That's the fleece back
Okay,
system.
can you just real quick give me the mill? I'm not interested in the mill on the 15 to 20. You said the 30-year was 080, 80 mil?
The 30-year, the base sheet is 80 mil, the cap sheet is 80 mil. And that's not including the granules, right? Like the granulated surfacing.
And what did you say the 40-year fleece one was?
80 mil base sheet, 60 mil waterproofing. It's got a full 30 on top and a full 30 below the scrim. And that's where I'm trying not to manipulate the overall thickness by scrim and fleece, because that's, yeah.
While they're thinking about this, let's just for the sake of discussion, assume that you bid everything, both of them, both projects. So,
Yep.
double the effort on behalf of the bidders. Does it help to give them a financial incentive to bid so that they get compensated for providing a bid, so they know at least their time is taken care of, so that recognizing that we're having them do 4 essential projects, 30, 40, multiple year and a single year projects. I mean, that's a lot, but I mean, we can offer financial incentives. Does it help, or does that not bring?
I don't think it's necessary. I think the partners that are interested in this project understand the game. They do a tremendous amount of public work with and without me. So I think if we knew that you could at least do the minimum base, then they will be okay. It's when we bring them to a bid like this and we say, well, we don't even know. That's where it makes it difficult, because they're going to have 2 weeks in this.
So are you saying it's not a problem to ask for a 30 and 40 year?
It could be done. What we would want to do there is we would bid everything as one selected system, and then we would just ask them for an add deduct for the base bid. And then if there's alternates, we would ask for an add deduct for each of those for that upgrade, or whichever direction.
See, I'm not interested in the 15 or 20, but we wanted him to provide you all with 3 options. So, and he did exactly what we asked him to do.
On the 30-year, is there concern about having to do a structural analysis on that? Because you said the wait was.
So we always, based on what documents you have, you, the client, we always calculate the existing weight that's there. We know we're adding weight. In almost any case that the existing roof is saying, you're going to go over 5%. So if you have a structural engineer you already work with and you prefer, great. I have a document that spits out the weight of every component that we're adding down to the foam. If you don't, I can make recommendations on different people that do this with me all the time. They did not the sheriff's department. That's concrete this thick. They had all their documents. The school, we don't touch a section on that school without a structural. Typically, I don't want to speak on their behalf. If you've got some documents and they review it, it's typically between $800 to $1,200. They do an assessment if they don't have to come out. Again, if you look at this, it's the owner's obligation, right? And the main thing you're looking at is if, heaven forbid, we ever had 4 feet of snow and a roof collapsed, the insurance is going to say, do you have your documents that you built your building properly?
Yeah, are you saying this would be done on both the 30-year option and the 40-year?
Yeah, regardless, you need someone to look at your structural. We got to look at live and dead loads and how the building was built. But like what I was referring to is if you said we want to do a flood coat and gravel, the gravel goes down about 5 pounds per square foot. Now you may be pushing the threshold of a pre-manufactured building. Most buildings are going to have the additional structure for the lighter system without the gravel. Yeah. But yes.
I had gravel on a building that I owned downtown, and that was the leakinest, hard to find, pain in the neck thing that I said I would never, ever support anything like that. There'd be a leak, it'd be leaking here, but the problem was 40 feet that way.
Corey, you have anything you want to add? No?
I have one question. Is this, whether it's a 30 or 40 year, it's gonna be applied over the existing membrane structure? It's not gonna be a partial demo or replace?
The membrane will be removed. The proposal was to utilize the 2 layers of polyiso insulation, being that today's roof systems are still built with polyiso insulation. So instead of filling up, I just did calculations for Parkview Noble. On 60,000 square feet, they were going to fill up 86 dumpsters, throw away polyiso, and bring in 11 semis of polyiso. So if it's dry, it's still good insulation. If it was the old fiberglass, it would go in the dumpster. But the R values are still high enough that by adding 1 additional layer of 1 inch, we're bringing it beyond where it originally was with R value. We will add additional mechanical fasteners. Code requires more fastening than what was originally up there. But the membrane would go away. The membrane is cut with a box cutter and rolled up. It's that thin. So that would go away.
Did you guys get all the pictures you could get on? Okay.
We are adding an additional taper. We're making this roof drain. Corey knows we are not going to put a new roof up there and let it pond water like yours does today. So we'll take care of that with tapered insulation. So just
Right, so what I'm hearing is it's gonna be a partial deconstruction. But, so the majority of the weight's gonna remain, and a new weight, new materials would add on to the existing weight per square foot on the roof.
yes. So what I would provide to the structural engineer is I have a spreadsheet. I add every item that's staying plus being added. It adds up a total weight, and then what he does is he looks at the building's design and says what the building can maintain as dead weight.
And then more questions.
We've been very happy. We think Austin's done a great job, and I like the idea of the options, especially when we haven't, we don't know where we're gonna drag the money from. So I think with this building's in a TIF district. It houses every department in our, in our organization. So you guys all see how much money each department has, and then you see how much money the general fund has. So, and then you see how much money is in TIF also. So,
Edit would, I don't know if you have any, but edit, or let's roll it down, I guess. Qualify to.
yeah. I mean, it's a big chunk, but I still say we have the money. However, if our clerk treasurer advises us against that, then we're gonna have to rethink that.
Does the committee have a recommendation?
We brought both systems that we thought either one would work. So
You've already narrowed down the options.
I like the 40-year, but only because of the graph that he presented on how much that will actually cost over the life of it. And he already said that we've been here, 20 years, Shannon, at least. We just paid our bond off. So I don't think the roof was brand spanking new when we bought this building, okay? So,
Well, it could have been.
well, I doubt it, but it could have been.
Put on very shortly before they sold it to
It
say
could
there
have
was a new roof and it's a 15-year roof, and now we're at.
But I don't remember that being a selling point in any way. And I do have a pretty good memory. But with that being said, I'm the long term. I'm always gonna get more bang for my buck personally and professionally. So
It's just on the back end. So, if you're asking me what I would also vote for the 40-year roof for the lower cost of the life of the roof. Also, it eases my mind a little bit with the structure of this building. The other way that I look at it is, you can look at it one of 2 ways. Are we going to be in this building for the next 40 years?
we'll be dead.
Or,
You'll be alive.
or are we going to go somewhere else? You know, I've heard the, what I call a pipe dream of moving back uptown across from the post office and trying to build a new facility there. You know, regardless, if we sell this building, it still needs a good roof on it to sell the building. So as the Public Works Committee, we brought you kind of the two options that we thought were best suited.
I like the Garland 40 because of the cost. The construction is not gonna add a lot of weight to the roof. So I concur with you. I like it for the same reasons. And cost over time,
Well, and that's what we're looking at here is,
because again, you know,
It's
40
also,
years, you're gonna have to use a medium.
if it matters, it's also the easiest roof for you to self-maintain, meaning if Corey or a team wanted to learn how to do like beyond preventative maintenance, obviously warranty will take care of things, but let's say you add pipe stacks and other things there, it's the easiest membrane to maintain, self-maintain without a contractor. So there's a lot of features to it. But
With
They
that
sell,
being said,
they sell
Corey,
white duct tape, don't they?
no duct tape.
No, I agree with 40-year, and I see both sides of the doing it all at once, doing it in phases. Even if we do go with just the phases, obviously we have our priorities and what needs to be done. And I do understand we stand to lose a little bit the longer we put off the whole project.
So you're directing towards the cost into the 40 year then?
That's what I would do.
Is everybody in agreement?
And then
That's my
he can do the, have it bidded all at once or have it bidded into the 3 phases. And then you'll do the, like he said, what'd you call it, 1 and then 1 and 2?
Yes, if you decide that you're not comfortable doing the whole thing, we'll bid the additional areas as alternates, and at least, even if not for you, it gives me a better line of sight on how close is my budgeting, because budgeting is very difficult right now with all the moving pieces. So yes, if you want to do it as a complete, we do it as a complete, and we give them that big carrot.
I would think the all at once might have a cost benefit over. Just because
Well, like
I
he said,
kinda did
the
your job
crane.
for 25
The
years.
crane, could you imagine the
Yeah,
crane
I-
cost?
You're going to have $70,000 to $100,000 a year by doing it all at once. Plus, that's just in inflation. But again, we got to do what the community can handle. I understand that. I mean,
There's always a cost associated with initiating a project in phases, because there's always going to be cost increases. There's always going to be potentially engineering fees, project management fees. Everything goes up in phases.
everything.
Everything does. It's not, and if you think it's not.
Yeah, in 7 years, your roof budget has almost doubled.
I remodeled a house 10 years ago and I just did another one and it was double.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
And that was bad.
originally you asked us to make a decision on which roof. Are you still asking us?
I mean, that would be my preference. If we can reach a conclusion on that, at least that gives Austin a direction, right?
Okay, I will entertain a motion for that if we're ready to go in that.
Motion that we go with the 40-year guard.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I have some information on that Omnia thing that he was talking about. I don't know if that's in your packet. Here.
And when you come back with your cost
Here, give
estimate, you're
this
gonna
to-
have the cost estimate for
Here.
do it all at once and then phases, right?
Yeah,
For the Garland 40. Thank you.
I would recommend that after you guys talk with financing, when we bid this, you'll have actual hard numbers that you could go into contracts, and that takes the pressure off of me of budgeting. We'll have actual bids in hand for you, regardless of which method you want to do. Yep.
Are we authorizing at this stage for Austin to bid it out, or do we need to wait?
My understanding.
That's my understanding, that we are authorizing him to do the,
As long as he could go ahead and bid it out.
We got to meet some preliminaries.
You're not spending any money other than, I don't know what his contract says. I don't know if you've already signed something with
we have
Carl.
not.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
yes, subject to probably just making sure that you have me verified.
We don't have a contract.
Everything he says is accurate, et cetera. So you could approve it, authorize it to be
Yeah.
bid, subject to, and then, of course, the nice part about that is then when you'll have Carol's information too, and you're gonna bid it as two separate, well, you're gonna bid all at once versus the phases, just to give them an idea, right? Is that the understanding?
Yep.
So yes, I would think.
So, yep. So the next steps are your architect of record and your structural analysis, which I can make a really strong recommendation for Steve Park, who that's another one to ask Pete about.
Is Kurt Heidenreich still do that stuff, or is he out of?
So Steve retired as well. He has Basic Element Designs. So he does this for when it's an Omnia project. He does it for a flat fee of around like $4,000 to $6,000. It's verse 10%. Yeah.
I know these guys he's talking about. Steve Park used to be with Dick Moak, and they were partners, and we used to do a lot of work with them. And very, very qualified. I would agree with his recommendation. The other guy we used to use was Kurt Heidenreich, and I don't know if he's even doing it anymore.
No Kurt doing it anymore.
He's just another guy in Fort Wayne that does truck. But Steve is great. I don't have any reason why you wouldn't go with him.
So I'll help you solicit those. I coordinate everything for you guys. Yep. And you guys will contract that direct, so there's no markups needed.
And just for a time frame that we talked with Austin, is we'd like to have all of our end of stuff done by like April, May timeframe, to where bids can be awarded. And then we told him that we could be flexible on when we start, whether it's we're just doing one section or we're going to do the whole thing. But we would, and Corey agreed with this, that we would like to have it like completed by around November timeframe. And Austin said a lot of contractors will like that idea that they have some flexibility on.
Yes, they will.
But that's kind of the timetable that the Public Works Committee envisioned for.
Hey, we got some work in this,
Yeah.
and we really appreciate you. You've been very helpful.
Well, thank you. No one ever sits and talks to me about roofing this long, so thank you.
Thank you, Austin. I appreciate you being here.
And thanks for bringing those visuals for us.
Yeah. Would you like them to stick around?
I don't need them, but
I'm 11 minutes from here. If you guys need to see him again, let me know.
We can text you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Just a minute, I guess we didn't vote. We had a motion and a second. I asked if there was any further comments or questions. So we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
This is the motion to do the 40-year
Yeah.
and to bid.
You did vote on it.
Continue the
You
process.
did?
Yeah.
Okay. She thinks we.
Yeah, I had it
I
written
don't
down.
remember saying that.
I don't remember hearing it either.
Yeah.
That's what- You got it twice.
Bill made the motion, and Zane made the second.
Yeah.
Get an email from Steve, because you'll know what I'm looking for.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks to the committee and Corey and Steve for all your work. I guess you guys are the committee.
Well, there's others in the
Yeah.
committee.
We are
Terry's in there.
We are going to move on to item number 2, which is the organizational changes and personnel changes. And this is, was tabled from the last meeting. We don't have any discussion. Let's-
Who attended that was Daryl.
Gerald and you attend.
Daryl and I attended a department head meeting last week, I think it was. Daryl did a great job of facilitating that, and for him not knowing a lot about the topic, he was educating himself, and I think, take it away.
I think basically there are no real problems existing currently. But we want to move forward to give us the capability, flexibility of dealing with a new hire after Steve leaves or retires. So we want to move forward with that in whatever form that becomes. I think that I read the employee handbook. It's a very thorough handbook, but maybe depending on what we decide to do, we might have to add some verbiage. Page 43, page 51, sections 701 and 716. You may have to add a little verbiage in there. But for the most part, we got our employees are happy the way it is. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you really don't want to do any termination of employees yourselves. You'd like not to do that?
No, they do want to.
They do want to do their departments.
Yeah. You want to hire, but do you want to terminate? Okay. My bad, I slept a couple times. But overall, they want a level playing field where we either we have a town manager and the department heads on one level playing field. They'll continue to communicate, they have to communicate for this organization to function. If we can't hire a qualified town manager, then we go with a planner or an administrative person. They're not bound by any state law that I can see. So that kind of changes the rules on hiring, firing, and disciplinary action. So that would become with the consent of the council, I would imagine. And maybe you want to, if you do hire a town manager in the future, maybe you want to make that with the consent of the council. But overall, there's no major problems. They want to run their own, they want to run and manage their departments. They want to be on equal playing field with whomever or whatever position we have in place within the town of Albion. They want equal playing ground. There's some things we have to do to make that happen.
You said, Kurt, that you wanted to know at our last meeting what direction we were going. And we already know from the documents that you had spread out in front of our last meeting that the two, was it the ordinance and the resolution, whatever, those were outdated. So out of what we came up with from this department head meeting, this is what they want and this is the direction we want to move. However, that's only me and him. We still have to get her opinion, his opinion, and her opinion. So
we had that meeting because I've been off the council. I wasn't sure that I understood fully what was being asked or what we were trying to achieve. And so it was a good meeting. It educated me on the circumstances that we currently have versus the current circumstances that we might have in the future. And I can see it could be a legitimate concern, potentially, if certain things are eventually.
we had some issues in the past that we were completely unaware of. I mean, I was completely unaware of them. All right, Zane, so me and Gerald weighed in on the department head meeting and that they want to proceed. But, that's just him and I, what we got out of that meeting. So it's over on your side of the room now.
So I apologize, I wasn't able to make it to that meeting. I already had a work conflict that day. But I did meet with each of the department heads briefly, and I think from my standpoint, I understand the concern is the micromanagement and, that, I guess, point of control being levelized, but I still have some concerns. I guess one, I still don't fully understand changing that hierarchy and changing some of the verbiage that we have recommended, how that's going to, I guess, alleviate all concerns in the future. But I still have some concerns about the state statute and what way we're headed and bringing the control back more to us. Because as I read it, I understand that, I mean, we still have jurisdiction over the town manager the way it is currently. And so if there's a concern one-on-one between a department head and the town manager, we still make that final decision. And so I'm a little confused about that. I know I haven't had all of the history of everyone else. And then also all of us, have different expertise that we bring to the field, but it is going to give us more HR, responsibilities. I don't have a background in that at all, but I have been on some boards where we've had some things with nonprofit organizations that took a lot of time and honestly put us in a precarious position. And so I think having that hierarchy still makes sense to me from that standpoint. So I guess I'm still on the fence or not really convinced that like moving forward in a quick manner makes sense because we haven't worked out, and I know like tonight's vote I think is just to see which direction we're going and then we'll work out all those details, but I haven't discovered any solidified, I guess, points of control other than just concerned about that leadership style. And I think we still can make those decisions about that leadership style. And I also liked Steve just thinking through, I mean, when we hired him with the intent of moving in that direction, but we also, worked with him on his contract and suggested that he help us with this analysis, but then we're kind of rushing forward with it without giving him a full year to evaluate. So I'm not saying I'm totally against it at this point, but I'm struggling to see, I guess, the cons outweigh the pros for me right now.
So, okay, my turn, I guess. So I did a lot of thinking about this. I talked to various individuals within the municipal organization. I think a couple key things stand out to me. Number one is we're already operating a certain way. Number two, our ordinance don't reflect how we're operating. So regardless, we have to change that. Carol sent out an email about the streets superintendent's agreement, which doesn't match the other department heads. I don't like that. I like consistency. So with all of that said, I was on the fence kind of probably where Abby was for quite a while. I had to wrap my head around the fact that we're operating a certain way right now. We're not really changing, I guess, per se, what we're doing. We're just changing the ordinance to reflect how we're operating. So I wrote down this was just kind of like a vomit of the thoughts that came to me that I can put down on paper real quick. So organizationally, what it looks like to me is the town council. Directly below that, you have the town manager, and then you have the town marshal, and you have the department heads, all in one tier. That's how we're operating in essence right now. Now, what I mean by that is the town manager doesn't hire and fire department heads unilaterally right now. That's usually done via a committee and then brought to the town council. So my recommendation for that would be we do away with the naming of the hiring committee, and that becomes the HR committee. Or if someone has a better term for this committee, by all means, throw it out here. But what I mean by that is it sounds better than the hiring and firing committee. In my mind.
So, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't want to be called the hiring fire.
So, great segue. Thank you for that hook, which leads me to discipline. So I believe, as you alluded to, there still needs to be some sort of a hierarchy. To leave everything with the town council, who is here basically 2 nights out of the month is absurd in any organization, in my opinion. So what my recommendation or thought would be, and again, any of these can be tweaked, this is just my thought vomit. The town manager, which, hold on, I don't think we should change the name of the town manager. I still think it should be called the town manager, as Kurt alluded to last time. We don't have to change that to town administrator, town planner, whatever. We just change the ordinance, what it says. So anyways, the town manager would still retain what I would call disciplinary documentation. So department head shows up late, department head shows up drunk, whatever the case is, that needs to be documented. And then that needs to be brought to the HR committee for review, in my opinion. In the event that there's a number of these documented disciplinary actions, and again, it's because the department heads are on the same organizational level, the town manager's not really doing anything except for documenting these things and saying, hey, you're doing bad, basically, and then it goes to the HR.
Could the same thing be said, though, of, could the department heads report
Hold on,
the town
I'm not there
manager?
yet. I'm not there yet.
Okay, you're going there.
We're going there.
Okay, good.
So anyways, we need that documentation, and we still need that hierarchy, in my opinion. We're not there. The town manager should be the eyes and ears of things, along with the department heads. Now, in my mind, to keep checks and balances, is I feel that the department heads then need to review the town manager's performance at a minimum an annual basis. So in my mind, I know this had been done in the past, and maybe it wasn't as fruitful because of this structure of being able to hire and fire. In my mind, I feel like it should allow the department heads to bring up any discrepancies or grievances that the town manager has been underperforming, or how they've been treated. And that's brought up to the HR committee, talked about, and then the HR committee presents that to the town council. It could be a 6-month, but I would just say annual basis. At that point, I would feel that the department heads would have nothing to lose in bringing up some issues that they have had over the course of the year. Also, I would say I would highly encourage department heads, if they're going to the town manager and the town manager isn't fulfilling, I mean, by all means, they need to come to a council member at that point and say, hey, I've tried this, I've talked with this isn't getting done. And then that's just chain of command in my mind and how things should work. I had a realistic time frame, and this is just me, because the devil's in the details for me, that I was looking at. We're still moving in that direction if we decide that tonight, but to have this implemented, I say a realistic goal would be like 6 to 10 months from now to have this implemented, and that would mean that handbooks would be reprinted quarter number 1, 2026. Kurt's gonna have a lot of work. What I would say would be the next step is we're going to have to define responsibilities. The town manager, what is the town manager's responsibilities? What are department heads' responsibilities? Because all those are gonna need to be captured in an ordinance. And
Right.
that's gonna take some time
Because
to.
we're not gonna go by the IC code anymore,
Right.
which specifies what the town manager does.
So we're gonna have some legwork.
And frankly, what that IC code says is not what we're operating under. I mean, I know Carol wants some stuff off of her plate that she picked up in the interim that she doesn't want in her office. So, anybody that's picked up stuff, I know Corey's picked up stuff, everybody's picked up the slack. Those people all have to get together and decide what they don't want on their plate
Yeah,
anymore.
because once you take on those, it's hard to hand them back off or, change up what has become your norm.
But, and then with the reviews of the department heads to the town manager, of course, the town manager, we did that last year, or Jacob's last year, he did reviews.
Yeah.
So I think that's healthy for an organization, because it's easy to get into what I would call your day-to-day, and sometimes just have your blinders on what you're doing and not, see how, I guess, you're affecting the entire organization. anyways, those are my two things, or my 2 cents. I know there have been talk about department liaisons. I'm not opposed to that per se, but at the same time, I don't feel that town council members should be, I guess as Abby was alluding to, the HR arm of this organization.
And we're okay with that.
So, anyways, I don't know if that cleared anything up or muddied anything a lot worse, but it's just
You
my
did a good
thoughts
job.
on it.
All we're doing in tonight's meeting is giving our attorney the direction that we want to go. So are you saying that you want to proceed forward?
I'm saying that we have to rewrite the ordinances. I'm saying that we are already operating not how the IC code is wrote. So I'm saying, yes, we should proceed with doing this because this is how we're already operating. That's the part that I had to wrap my head around. Wrapping my head around, because initially I'm like, I don't want to move away from the town manager. Well, we're not. We're just redefining how we're operating currently. And we're doing that via an ordinance.
I think that's a really good synopsis of what we're trying to accomplish.
And could I chime in? Because this would be helpful, I think, to Kurt, perhaps to everybody. So I've started with the intent that Carol and I are going to put our heads together. I'm looking at the job description, town manager contract, and the IC code. And then the fourth thing was the May 14 summary memo from the hiring committee last year. So I'm kind of looking at 4 documents, and I'm putting that all into one document and reducing it to a kind of a spreadsheet. Here's all of the town manager duties, so to speak. And some very important, some superfluous, they're maybe not as important, or others are doing it, who knows what. We're going to really list everything, like a master list of everything. And then there'll be, I'm just thinking out loud, 2 columns. One will be who's doing it now. And then the last column, who do we think should be doing it? So I would like to come to some consensus with Carol on that review. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at too many spreadsheets, if everybody's giving you, their opinion and this and that. And that's fine. We should get more opinions on this. So maybe this would be the draft that Carol and I would come up with, saying, okay, here's something we agree at least 95% on, or, maybe we'll asterisk the things that Carol and I don't agree on, and whatever. And then at that point, here's a draft for consideration of the other department directors too. Let them weigh in. And then
the department directors are doing some of the town manager job now. Okay? Like the CCMG is a big one. So yes, I agree that you're on the right track.
Yeah, and we'll identify all those areas. Corey and I were just talking today, in fact, about this ERC designation that he has, and I'm working on mine. I'm about halfway through. I'll probably get it done this week yet, but and we said, well, it's probably the type of thing that we should have redundancy in the organization. Therefore, we should maintain this. But anyways, so this will help, I think, inform Kurt ultimately, because how can he redraft anything without having some specific? So, and I think it'll, like I said, we'll put it together. This is my thinking. If I'm off, let me know. Carol and I need to take the first stab at it, and then when we kind of come to consensus, and we get along very good, and we generally see things kind of eye to eye, but I know there's differences as well. So that'll be good and healthy. We'll get it on paper, let the departments weigh in, give it to the council, let you know what we're doing. And then at some point, boom, it comes back to you to say yes, no, and you adjust it however. But that way you get the most, the view from the trenches as to what we think the role is currently, who's doing it currently, and what we really think it ought to look like for the down the road, the 10, 15-year plan we're kind of hoping to come out of this with. So that's my thought. And then, so for tonight, for sure. Well, you already kind of give Kurt informal consensus, but that was the main goal. And I want to say that you really, brought up some very good points. And this whole idea of that is and you expressed it very well, both Abby and Zane, the idea that be careful of unintended consequences. We'll be careful too and point things out, but that, gee, does the council now become the HR? Well, and you can, through that committee process, but the whole liaison thing could be difficult because then it's like you have 5 mini town managers of sorts over this department, that department. So just something to think about. But one thing that was interesting with the whole idea of performance, yeah, if the town manager is evaluated by the department directors, that's a great thing for accountability. And there's something, a lot of organizations, the bigger ones especially, maybe they do something, I don't know how often, maybe every 5 years, or if they're I think it's called a 360 review, where not just internally is the manager getting evaluated, but externally, where they're contacting different stakeholders and this and that. I don't know if we've got to go there, but let's get our own house in order first. But it's a great idea, and it gives the department heads, I think, some ownership in that. Okay, my voice is important, and they can. If I'm not as a future town manager, me or someone in the future is not taking care of the departments, they have a voice then that they can go and expect that the council, that this manager needs some attention. So I think that's a really good thing. That's all I have right now. Thank you. Oh, by the way, pardon me, Kurt. I just want to say, Daryl really did an amazing job at the staff meeting because he got the input, he questioned everybody, he had questions, and I'd say in about 2 years from now, we should ask him if he wants to come out of retirement. Maybe
Keep in mind, this isn't what we want. We're representing everybody that was in that meeting.
Have another caucus. Yeah. I'm not really interested.
But thank you anyway. Right?
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that.
And when I retire, I'm not interested either. Just.
But I would, if listen, I'm jumping way off course here. Anybody that's young in a community or has any forethought or ambition to want to be involved in their community to make it better, you have an opportunity. Board members are staggered. Just run and get involved. I mean, it really is up to the younger generations now to be able to get on these boards, become members of the town in whatever form or function they want to do it, and learn how the town operates. It's so important. We're not going to be around forever. And unfortunately, you're looking at that. John retired. I was retired. And Chris is thinking about retiring.
Chris's financial advisor does not want her to retire.
But it's really important. If you know anybody, any young person who wants to become involved, have them come to the meetings. See if it's something they'd be interested in. It's so important. It really is.
Yeah, we never get anybody to fill the ballot. You know what I mean?
Well, we've had 3 caucuses that have 1 person.
Well, the only reason I'm sitting here is because I got a phone call on the deadline day and said, nobody's signed up, will you? And I was like.
That's one thing Jacob and I were trying to do with the Youth Advisory Council, which kind of, is not happening right at the moment, but because we want to get young people, at the high school and college level interested, and I know there's a lot of movement in our county to try to influence that in different ways to help them see, about local government and then, state government. So hopefully we'll continue to do that and until you have authority from me.
Sorry.
So that leads me to what I want to say, because I'm not going to be here forever either, and I want to leave the council in a better position, because we aren't operating the way it is on paper. And so I know it's going to be painful, it's going to take a lot of time, but I think the time has come that we have to make it a priority to kind of take care of what we've got in front of us. And I've listened to what a lot of employees, what a lot of department heads, staff members, all four of you, and I'm usually pretty wordy, but what I'm going to say is, out of respect and a commitment to our valued department heads and employees, it's my opinion that we move forward in the direction that we're talking about tonight. The main factors include employment longevity, high level of experience, and their great amount of knowledge. The position of our town manager, no matter who it is, should enhance all of the existing qualities that we have in our department heads. This action will also help us prepare for the future of hiring key employees. We all know that we have department heads that are going to be looking at retirement in the future. Not that I want any of them to, but it's going to affect the longevity that we have in our employees. And I just think that we need to be in a better place, and I hope that would encourage people to sit in these positions in the future.
Can I ask a question about, if we're not going to follow the IC code, then what governance will we use? And then what liability does that open us up to?
I guess you're asking me.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm going to answer it with a little bit of a different kind of classification. You are following the IC code. The IC code allows you to modify the terms and conditions of the town manager's job description by ordinance. So just so that on the record, we are going to follow the IC code.
Okay.
It's just that we're going to, there's some language that you probably looked at that says, except otherwise provided in your ordinance. So we're going to provide an ordinance, presumably, that's going to address these issues. And so it will take on the life of what you're talking about with the vetting of Steve through all the other inputs that you're going to get to me at some point, and we'll draft something. And then you'll look at it and you'll decide whether it's to approve it or not. It sounds like to me that the hiring, firing, and discipline ultimate decision-making is, if I'm hearing this correct, is going to be everybody's on the same plane, so to speak. That's the word others have used, which means that it does not appear that unless the town manager has their own employees, they will be directly hiring, firing, or disciplining anybody below that, which what that means is then you have multiple people hiring, firing, and disciplining, which creates more variables, of course, more potential for error, more potential for something to go wrong. Now I sound like I'm talking you out of it. I'm not trying to, but I'm answering your question. Like I said in the very beginning, it is always more efficient to have a central hiring, firing, discipline person. I understand Zane's explanation, which is very good, that it sounds like the town manager position will serve as a filter for you all to ultimately make those decisions, if necessary, at the department head level. Otherwise, my understanding is the department heads are going to make their own hiring, firing, discipline decisions, which can be done. It will take that decision making away from the town manager. The town manager will then be informing you through the HR committee of issues. So, for instance, if a department head does a poor job disciplining, hiring, firing, that report will come back to you, and you'll have to make a decision about that department head, whether that department head gets disciplined or terminated. So it definitely can work. It's definitely contemplated. It is, if that's the philosophy that you want, we'll make it happen on paper, because if that's what you're doing now, then it just needs to be modified. I don't think that it adds more personal liability to you. But I also can say that from my experience dealing with HR, anytime you add more people to the decision-making authority on whether or not somebody's to be disciplined or terminated, it of course increases the exposure to the town. But if that is what you want to be able to retain employees, attract new department heads, and keep the ones that are currently here, maybe that's worth it. That's what you guys are trying to evaluate. So long-winded answer to your question, but in a perfect world, of course, you want centralized hiring, firing, disciplinary authority because you got one person that you can filter that legal information to, that input from the people that are making decisions, like the bosses, so to speak. When you add additional layers and they're all at the same level, it increases the potential for error. So it means you have to be more vigilant on making sure that department heads understand not to violate the ADA when they're disciplining somebody, not to discriminate when they're making decisions on hiring and firing. They have to understand those types of things, because if they don't, work through somebody, presumably the town manager, to help them with that, even though it's their ultimate decision, then it exposes you from a town to more liability. So just understand that and work through it. It means that the department heads are either going to have to rely on somebody to help them with that, or they're going to have to get themselves educated and informed on what all goes into hiring, firing, and discipline, which is a lot. So.
Surely not every town has the IC code, and that is the gospel.
Correct. You're right.
Okay. That's what I wanted to clarify.
Absolutely.
Because,
that's why it says you can change it.
Right. How many, I mean, what do you think the ratio is, you know?
You know, that'd be a great question for, what is that?
A listserv. Yeah, listserv, yeah.
Say, how many of you have your centralized hiring, firing, discipline with the town manager versus not? I don't know. I know that all of them that I work with that have a town manager have the hiring and firing discipline at the central level, because of the fear of too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen making decisions on FMLA and ADA and discrimination and yada, all the things that go along with that, you know, sexual harassment and on, and you got just so many issues with HR that have. So I don't know. It's a great question, Chris. I'd like to know myself.
I tried to do some research on, because I thought we were gonna, it felt to me, you know, as we talked tonight, you know, I think it's added a little bit of clarity, but it felt to me like we were taking a step back by saying we were going from a town manager to maybe a town planner or administrator. And so I tried to do some research on, you know, what that looks like. And I don't know if it was the entire country, but it said 73% of communities that have 2,500 people or more are operating with a town manager versus administrator. But if we're not going backwards to administrator, but it's like, you know, as you become larger, then you typically work towards a mayor. And so to me, I was just trying to understand, are we, you know.
What was that percentage? I missed that.
The 73%, but again, I don't know what the jurisdiction was, so.
I think it was, you know, if I understand this right, it's only if, when he retires and we can't find somebody that's interested in being a town manager, what's plan B? That's what I thought was maybe driving or influencing a lot of this.
Not necessarily. I think the driving influence is we had some serious problems that we were unaware of in the past.
Yeah.
And frankly,
well, we didn't know that.
We were completely unaware of them until we were interviewing. And Vicki had invited all the department heads into the interview process, is when we found out all the problems that we had, and that no one would blow the whistle.
So I think some of the things that you outlined, Zane, when you talked through that, could prevent that going forward, so that there's more transparency, you know, and with the reviews and kind of looking at meeting with department heads. Yeah, so.
You're small enough that it can work. If you were the city of Fort Wayne, as we do their work, impossible, right? You couldn't let department heads. I'm sorry. You'd have to have staff person that goes through it because you've got too many issues with all those things I just said. So you can make it work. It adds more variables. It requires department heads to step up their game with regard to understanding HR issues. And that's kind of your job, to make sure they do, right? And it requires your town manager to work cooperatively with them and to, of course, serve as your liaison, so to speak, to try to make sure that you understand what's going on. So it definitely can work at a smaller level, which you are, and that's fine. So we can make the documents work with that process and procedure. Then the devil's in the details as to how everybody works in that setting together. But yeah.
Okay, so do you have your pecking order?
I do.
then?
I
Okay,
understand.
good.
Yeah, and I like the idea that Steve will vet all of this and package it and sort of filter it back to us, me included, so that I can start to work on something.
So of those 5 things that needed changed, is there anything that you can begin working on prior to getting that information from him and
I
Carol?
think I can start structurally to look, because I haven't. Of course, I just did a quick review before we had our last meeting, so I can be prepared for the discussion. Yes, I think I can start. There's things that, for instance, your website says the town manager has to ensure that Massachusetts law is being complied with. Well, obviously, that's just a flat out mistake. Why it says that, I don't know. But yeah, there's all kinds of things that I haven't told you about. But you go to your website and you look and it says the town manager has to ensure compliance with Massachusetts law. I mean, silliness, right? There's things like that I can start to point out regardless of the structure. Yes.
Change of form.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's,
It looked like to me, a hodgepodge of forms were just sort of gathered together and said, well, this was the town manager in this city, and this was the town manager in that city, and let's do it this way. And then we had that Villa co-town manager thing, and this all, yes, is my answer.
Okay.
There's a lot I can do, and thankfully, with Zane's assurances that it doesn't have to be done in 2 weeks, I have time.
Let's take our time and get this right. As Vicki alluded to, that, she wants to leave this better.
It
Let's just
will.
dot all our i's and cross all our t's.
and there are things in the personnel policy that are not correct, that have nothing to do with this discussion, that need fixed.
And if those can be, because at some point, I'm gonna, presumably, unless you tell me not to, I'm gonna come to you with, a couple different things. Maybe a new ordinance regarding town managers, dealing with the IC code and the exceptions. There'll be suggestions to make changes to the manual, which needs to be adopted by ordinance. I would love to have those all done at one time, so that you don't have to pay me to mobilize again, just do an ordinance to change a personnel manual or something. So, since we have time, this structural change, definitely doable. If there's things that need to be addressed in the personnel manual that just are wrong or they aren't the way you're doing it, now's the time to do it while I'm mobilized to do all this.
And you have a committee for that, right? There's a committee for the personnel.
Oh,
manual.
yeah.
My point is, I would envision this structural change
Yeah, well, I'm not
as
on
a part
that.
of all that.
I think you're the one on that, right?
Abby and I.
Oh, Abby and you, okay, gotcha.
Okay,
But yes, to answer your question, I feel good about where you want to go.
okay.
I think I can pull it off.
So are we ready to make this a formal decision?
I think so.
What are we voting on?
I hear you voting on, basically a motion that would be something along the lines of authorizing legal counsel and the town manager to work together with staff, et cetera, and the council to modify the current, way that town manager's position is structured, which could include, but not limited to, changes to the manual, changes to the job description, et cetera. And if you like that, you could say so moved, and that will give us enough.
And the ordinances.
Thank you.
So moved.
Did you get all that, Sharon?
No, not really, but like.
Hey, well, this is being recorded.
There you go.
Okay.
We do have a
I'll help you with it
motion.
tomorrow.
All set.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions?
So then from there, you and Steve and Carol would work together, and then the personnel committee at some point would just kind of be an extra set of eyes and ears, and then we would bring it back to council to vote.
Absolutely. This motion does not contemplate anything irreversible. You can change anything about it, including forget it when you get there. You're kind of just authorizing the spending of money and time to try to capture what everybody is saying.
We have a
How-
motion.
Like Zane said, how we're operating now. So you had to wrap your head around that. That's what we're fixing.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
I just want to clarify, just based on your comment, if you don't mind, Chris,
Sure.
that how we're operating now, yes, is a big component, but also we're kind of looking ahead too to
Yeah,
what,
and changing
right?
some things
Yeah,
probably.
so right. So there'll be things that'll be different than maybe how we're operating now when we're all said and done with it.
And just without belaboring the discussion, in the meantime, if an issue comes up, I think that because you're operating differently than the way the ordinance is written, yeah, I would encourage you to work together cooperatively, just because we don't want to get into a situation where we have an employment lawsuit where we haven't followed the proper chain of custody or command, I should say, and get the chain of custody thing in mind, because I see Marshall over there. Chain of command, so that there's no possibility that we have wrongful termination is what I'm getting at. So just be sensitive to that. Know that because we're in sort of transition and we are operating differently than what it says, it would be good for us to be overly cautious when there's a discipline or a termination that's not amenable, to probably spend some time thinking that through and dialoguing about that and how that needs to look, because we're not quite there yet, clearly, with documents. So that's what I'm trying to say.
That's good advice, thank you. Okay, we will move on to item number 3, discussion on the Village of White Oaks interest sign and other signs in the town's right of way.
I'll start us off. We had I think it was right at the same department head meeting that Daryl and Chris came to. We talked about this to begin with. It was on our agenda. And there wasn't any more locations identified that hadn't already been thrown out there. So we're really looking at the Rolling River, where there's some kind of a entrance subdivision sign, but the street has not been accepted. We're looking at the 2 White Oak subdivision signs, one of which recently damaged. The other needs some maintenance. Third area, already mentioned, the North Woods, where there's a sign for that subdivision, but it's between 2 houses. We haven't determined if it's on a utility easement, an alley, or if it's privately owned yet. The Parks Department maintains all of our town entrance signs, so that's really not in the discussion, but they also maintain the islands by the Dollar General store. And then the only other signs that we came up with, we talked about up by the Dollar General or the Family Dollar, the Trail Ridge Road sign is there, but everybody believes that's off the right of way, so doesn't really apply to our discussion. And then there might be a mobile home park or 2. 7th Street was mentioned, that they thought that's probably off of the right of way as well. So that's kind of, there's really not a lot of similar situated signs. I did hear from American Family Insurance, tried to contact me today, and I returned their call, so we played phone tag, because I think we needed to ascertain at some point what, well, I'll see what they have to say. I mean, I don't know if they have a dollar amount in mind. If they do, great. We'll see how that pairs up with what is the actual cost to replace the sign. So a little more research has got to occur on that.
And have we got any quotes for the repair, or are we leaving that up to the insurance company?
We don't have any quotes
Is
for,
that our job to get the quotes?
If you want to know if the insurance is adequate, probably should, because we're taking the position that it was an implied acceptance. So, yeah, I would think if you want to know whether the insurance that they're offering is acceptable, whether you need to argue with them over more, you want to have a real number, just like you go to the
But-
car place and get your car quote before you go to the insurance, sorry.
But we also want to consider if we've inherited those two signs and all the other signs, do we want to replace it with what it is? So, I mean, there's a lot
Well,
of
you're only
factors.
required in the car accident to put it back like it was. If you want to improve it, that's on you and your dime. But as far as the insurance company goes,
Or you can choose to take the money and
right, we
not
can
fix
choose
your
to
car at
take
all.
the money, and then we can choose to make whatever sign we want.
Or not have any.
Right. So I think that we should get a quote, or get an estimate. I think we should get an estimate to repair the sign as it sits. Or it has to be similar or as it sits, because that's all the insurance company is required to fix.
But then from there, we would do whatever.
Right, if we want to upgrade,
Yeah.
I'm not against that either. But as far as the insurance money goes, they're only required to pay us what it's worth, or what it would cost to put it back like it was.
So Steve, you're hearing that, and we'll just leave this matter as you have more information if it needs to go back on the agenda, or when it needs to go back on the agenda because you have more information. That's what we'll need to do.
okay, I'll work on that, getting a quote or an estimate, and I'll bring it back to the council.
And then you'll also know what the insurance company has to say.
Correct. In fact, and if you don't mind, this may, I don't know if this would happen before our next meeting, but are you okay with an email update if I'm
Sure.
making some developments on this? Okay.
Sure.
So is American Family the car owner's insurance? So we were initially working with Jared because that's our insurance agent, but.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. And then, but then he had, I don't know, I think it's a little different than subrogation.
That's right.
Is that the same concept?
He represents the other side too?
No, the other insurance company is representing the driver who did the damage. So our insurance has no money involved in this.
Got
it. Isn't subrogation where the companies say, oh, you're 40% responsible, you're 60, or they split?
Well, subrogation is where the party that pays out the damages steps into the shoes of and can go after the wrong party. So for instance, if our insurance company wrote us a check for $5,000, they would then be subrogated to our rights. They can go after the other party, the party that did it. So if we're dealing with the party that damaged the sign, we're not in a subrogation situation. If we were to take insurance, what's that company you use, Black and Raymer or something?
Yes.
That's not American Family, right?
Right.
No, correct.
So if they gave us a check, they would be subrogated to our rights, and then they would go after the driver of the car. If you're dealing directly with the driver, then that's a good thing.
Okay, and I think they facilitated it because the sign wasn't on their insurance, whatever, record or list.
Sometimes, so in auto accidents mainly, your insurance will just write you a check for your med pay and your amount of the damage to your vehicle, and then they'll go after the other party. That's subrogation. If that's not what's happening here, and you're not getting money from your insurance company, then you're not in a subrogation situation.
Okay,
But
great,
there
thank
was
you.
an email that I read that they asked what contractor if we were gonna use a local contractor, so that sounds like subrogation.
It does.
Potentially,
It does.
and that came through you, I think, Steve, you check back. Black and Raymond.
Yeah, if Black and Raymer's coordinating, they might be taking the position that they're gonna write us a check at some point. They're gonna hire a contractor, and they're going after the driver, I'm guessing. Whoever was the negligent party.
Okay, I'll report
help if
back.
you need it, but yeah.
Thank you for that explanation, Kurt.
Okay, on to item number 4, approval of resolution number 2025-05, affirmation of upload of local government contracts for fire protection and emergency medical services. This is a resolution to direct the clerk treasurer to upload certain contracts to the Indiana Transparency website and to make certain attestations.
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 It's a unique, yeah, it's ridiculous.
I will move to approve resolution 2025-05.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We took care of item number 5, so we will move.
Were you gonna bring up the issue of the second reading or not? That's something you told me you wanted to talk about.
There you are.
In a resolution, or is it just a review?
No, that was my.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That
Yes.
was,
Yes, I'm sorry, Kurt. Thank you.
I'm not saying you have to, but I need to understand from a moving forward perspective, because Carol and I do not necessarily, I don't say we don't see eye to eye. She had asked me to remove the waiver of second reading. We recommend against that, and do you want to have the discussion or not about it?
And she was not against your advice, by the way, just,
She wanted direction.
Right.
Tell me,
And so do I.
give me the pro. Give me the pro.
So, just to summarize the long email I gave you, basically.
Right, I read all that.
Yeah, the statute says that if you have an ordinance, I'm summarizing this, but if you have an ordinance, you have to have a second reading, or you can waive the second reading. But the statute doesn't define what an ordinance is. The case law has said that resolutions and ordinances are synonymous, interchangeable. There is no distinction. So it'd be like me calling this chair a table. It's not a table, it's a chair. So if I call a resolution, but it's really an ordinance, how do you know the difference? So our point is, as a law firm, our position has been for 30 years, more maybe, that it makes no sense to not put a waiver of second reading on a resolution, because on the off chance someday that somebody challenges the resolution as an ordinance, the title doesn't make it a resolution. It's the structure of what's going on inside. And in this particular case, the information that was given by the state to do this in the first place said you can do it by ordinance or resolution. They don't necessarily care what format. The title doesn't make it an ordinance versus resolution. People generally think if it says resolution, it's resolution. If it says an ordinance, it's an ordinance. That's not the case. There are subtle differences between the two. Case law is very clear that it's indistinguishable, though. And so because of that, the consequence is if it's an ordinance, even though we call it a resolution, and you don't waive the second reading, it's invalid. So our position is, just to be clear, and why take the risk, have all resolutions and ordinances have a waiver of second reading. You can do it all at the end, one time. You don't have to do it every time, or you can do it each time. And so when she asked me to draft this, I included a waiver of second reading, and she asked me to remove that. And I, of course, said that's contrary to our recommendation. So
I think that that's smart.
I have a question, and this is just an educational standpoint for my benefit. Why have two?
Great question.
If essentially they're the same thing with just subtle differences, what's the point of having a resolution in?
It's a great question. In fact, one of the options I gave in here for you to consider was to not have two, to convert all resolutions to ordinances. The difference is your codifier, who does your codification, will codify ordinances. They won't codify resolutions. So the only benefit of calling something a resolution versus calling something an ordinance is your codifier that you pay annually, American Legal Services, to codify the ordinances, will not codify resolutions. So they won't touch it if it's called a resolution. So it doesn't become part of your codified code of ordinances if it's a resolution. That is in my opinion, relatively insignificant distinction, but it is the distinction. There is no other reason to not call something an ordinance all the time. Or if somebody wants a resolution versus an ordinance, or if the statute says a resolution. I'll give you an example. In a bond, they require you to do what's called a reimbursement resolution. The statute calls it resolution. It doesn't call it an ordinance. So if you're gonna finance something through a bond, the first thing you have to do is pass a reimbursement resolution so that any money you spend before the bond is issued can be reimbursed to those funds later out of the bond. But the statute says it's gotta be a reimbursement resolution. So we call it that, but we always require a waiver of second reading because the case law says they're indistinguishable. So it's a great question. It's been the subject of a debate in the courts for years. And the best thing I can tell you is there are some times when the statute, like a bond, says you have to do it by resolution. Honestly, there's no difference between the two. Even the courts say that. So our position is instead of taking the risk, why risk it is the question, just take the position on all resolutions and ordinances, waive the second reading. It becomes perfunctory. It's part of your normal routine. It can either be done all at the end, as long as you're unanimous. The only reason you wouldn't do it all at the end is if for some reason somebody says, nope, I want it brought back up the second time. So waivers of second reading aren't acknowledging that you agree with it. So for instance, let's just say Abby voted against this resolution. Her duly noted, she's against it. She can still vote in favor of waiving the second reading, which makes unanimous of the members present, and it can be adopted on the first reading now, even though she was opposed initially to the resolution. I'm using you for example. So I don't know if I'm answering or going beyond what you wanted to know, but the point I guess I was trying to make in my discussion was why take the risk when it's so easy to do and to become, and since the courts don't distinguish, if we need to call something a resolution because the statute requires it, we'll call it a resolution. We would recommend you always consider waiving the second reading and have it attached as part of your normal format, whether it's an ordinance or a resolution.
I guess I don't see the point in not doing
Me
Right,
either.
right, this
Well,
is
the only
this is
thing
a
I
legal
can think of-
no-brainer.
The only thing I can think of is just,
More paper.
I mean,
It's one more
that's
And
what
it's-
we've done it.
well, it's
it.
less,
Not have it.
it's less documents that you're paying American.
Yes, that's true.
I don't know if that's why originally they didn't do it. I think that seems kind of like an odd reason, but.
They historically, because I see their work all the time, they will codify. Their codification is of ordinances. So if we call something a resolution, they won't pick it up unless you tell them. I don't think that's bad as long as we make it clear that if there's something we want them to pick up, we call it an ordinance. So our firm's recommendation is don't worry about whether it's called ordinance or resolution. If the statute calls it one or the other, fine. The standard protocol is have a waiver of second reading attached and deal with it in your meeting.
And you can say, and you've said that could be one waiver at the
Absolutely.
very end, saying all the documents
Yes. So
are.
a very final thing you could do at the end of a meeting, if there was a resolution or ordinance passed during that meeting, is somebody makes a motion to waive any requirements for a second reading and to pass all resolutions and ordinances adopted tonight on first reading.
Do we have to go through that whole stupid spiel of causing the attorney to read it for the first time?
No, that's all
That's
not
why
even
we threw
required.
him off
I don't
when
understand.
we
I've
did
never
that.
seen that before. The
Okay,
other thing you do,
we're
which
so dumb anyway.
no, it doesn't make any sense. The other thing that you do that I don't think is required, but I haven't looked at your plan commission rules, is because typically to do a rezone, you have to have a public hearing at the plan commission level. There is no need for a second reading at the council, the legislative level. So I don't know what your plan commission does because I've had nothing to do with them, but if they're having hearings on rezones and then it gets certified to you and you hear it, that's the second reading. You don't have another one unless unless your bylaws, which I don't know what they say, your ordinances say you have to have a third reading. Some communities require a third reading for ordinances. I don't think you have that from what I can see online.
Not that I'm aware of either.
So the only other one that doesn't require a second reading is an appropriation ordinance. And Carol would know that. That isn't required and we would never suggest you put that on your appropriation ordinances that she prepares.
I wanted to have this discussion so that we are consistent in how we do it.
I agree, you should.
And you don't have to do it because I want you to,
No,
but I see it as a potential risk. Here's the risk. Let's just, for the sake of discussion, remember I said the statute said this particular thing you just did can be passed by ordinance or resolution. We do it by resolution, and somebody challenges us, which they're not likely to do, but let's just, for the sake of discussion, assume they do, that we didn't have a waiver of second reading. and it's not valid, you don't get your budget. So the risk is so great. I don't understand, like you said, why would we not waive the second reading on all resolutions in order? Just so that we don't have to think about it as we go through our life.
But we don't have to do that whole spiel.
No, never. I don't know what that
You have
is.
to retrain us.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing it because you.
We welcome the retraining
Yeah,
on that.
absolutely.
Kurt, we can rewrite your job description too while we're doing mine if you like.
Yeah. So the recommendation for the record is all resolutions and ordinances have a waiver of second reading. You address them every meeting, whether you do them as you do them or at the end, doesn't matter.
Well, one thing that we have typically not done is adopt an ordinance on its first reading. And I think it was, yes, at one point down the line, it seemed to be a hurried thing. And,
But there's a reason, yeah.
right, and I think that we just stepped back and decided we were gonna do the ordinances 2 times.
That's okay. And that,
Unless it was a time thing, we had to do it that day because we were on a time crunch.
you never have to waive the second reading. It's an option.
Right.
And you can't waive the second reading unless all members present, not all members present unanimously approve it.
And if we don't do the waiver, then it has to go on the next agenda.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I understand. It's pretty straightforward.
I like
I think we should be consistent also.
The argument against it, just to be fair to Carol, is you traditionally haven't done it, and so we have never had any trouble before. You've never been called on the carpet for it. Why change? And I don't disagree with that. I just, I'm not a risk taker, as you can tell. And to me, it's not worth the risk. It should be part of it's the best practice, even though it adds more to the thought process.
It's just one more piece of paper, and it's just.
Right, but it's a paper of protection
Right.
against litigation. And imagine what it would cost for us to get into a litigated situation. It's gonna cost a lot of money, more than a piece of paper.
That's kind of my idea too, is it's a piece of paper, it's a way of functioning that is prophylactic, if you will. It helps.
Doing business the right way.
Yeah.
I agree. I think we should do that. I think we should start using that.
Do we want to wait until Carol's present?
We don't have to make a decision
Yeah.
tonight. I mean, you just wanted to talk about it. I think that Carol's opinion is important, but,
Very.
Well, she's amenable, as I said, to whatever the
She did
direction
not.
is. Yeah, she didn't
Debate
have
or
a,
argue with me. What she said was, let's let Vicky decide.
Yeah, and I said, let's talk about it with everyone. 'Cause I-
so it sounds like there's consensus at a minimum. Did you just want us to kind of informally start to do this, or did you need a motion?
If you're gonna do it, then the first place to start will be tonight at the end, because I'll help you with it. Somebody will make a motion to waive second readings on any and all ordinances or resolutions passed tonight. You'll get used to that. That'll be language. You can even put it on your agenda or put it on, some of the towns I have, they'll actually put it on they'll put a sticky note on the back of there so they can see it and read it.
Is it wise to do that though, versus just doing it after?
That's the best practice. is
So
doing-
I would rather do it after each one, because it might be where I'm okay with this resolution, but an ordinance that we were considering,
Best practice.
I'm not okay. I would rather.
we've been doing all ordinance 2 readings. That's what we've consistently been doing.
But I would rather just waive at.
The second reading on each ordinance.
Or just when we're done talking about it, like for instance, this number 4, we're talking about resolution number 2025-05. We all vote to approve that. We say yes, and then I would say, I would like a motion to forego the second reading of resolution 2025-05, and we just vote again on it immediately.
Absolutely.
Because we have not been doing that with
Or that's
ordinances.
what this page 4 says that you don't have, because with great respect, Carol asked me to remove it. So if you look at page 4, that's what I was asked to remove.
That would be my thought process, as opposed to doing all of them. Because if Chris doesn't like one, like if I want to go ahead and only do an ordinance with 1 reading, and Chris says, no, we're doing it with 2, then at least
Zane, but what you're suggesting, that's what I thought would still happen. Everyone would be voted on separately, but then at the end, it would still just be one.
If you vote on it separately, you don't have to do it at the end.
Right, but if
I
you
think
vote
it
on
should
it
be
separately,
separate.
you're gonna have 5 sheets of signatures.
No,
No, you're
it's
just-
in the minutes.
You're just doing it after each resolution. So if we had a resolution and an ordinance, like we're gonna talk about VS engineering here, right? And if that was an ordinance next, and we already did a resolution, and you went to the end of the meeting and you were going to forego the second reading for all ordinances and resolutions, there could be a scenario where one of us wouldn't want to forego all of them, but we could potentially, forego the resolution and not the ordinance.
That's correct. And in that scenario, Zane, if one person didn't like one of them you passed earlier and wants to force it to come back to the public, all of them then don't get passed tonight.
Right, and then you're revisiting all of them.
And we are not in the habit of passing ordinances on the first reading.
And you don't have
Correct.
Right, but we haven't been. I'm just saying that how we've been operating the last several years, we have not been doing.
But if you have a waiver of second reading and it's in writing and it's approved by unanimous, you can do it.
Yep, and I think we should do, just like he said,
But with the waiver, what I'm asking, I thought the waiver, can we still do it where it's just one waiver at the end, even though maybe there were 2 ordinances that everybody said, no, we better read these twice?
There's 2 different practices. One is where somebody just does it at the end when they're all, the risk is somebody doesn't like one of them and says no, and that blows it for all of them. Whereas the best practice that Zane's bringing up, even though it takes.
So then you would need 5 waivers that night where they're signing 5 documents saying I'm waiving reading on.
They're already attached to
They're-
each.
Has to each
You would already be signing.
I think that would be.
Oh, so you're signing once, is that?
Yeah.
Okay, I follow.
So for
Okay.
this resolution, you're signing this like tonight that we passed it. All you would do is sign an additional page for this resolution, waiving the second reading for the resolution.
And it would be attached to that ordinance.
Well, that's what I'm getting. You are duplicating your signature, basically. That was trying to avoid that. but-
Regardless of whether you do it at the end or in best practice each time. Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Yes, so it wouldn't just be one page, Steve, for all of them. Like, you would still have to sign it for every single one, even if you did it at the end.
Oh, okay,
It would
thank you,
just
yeah,
cover
for sure,
both.
okay, thank you.
I like the page being attached to the particular ordinance resolution. That makes you handle it.
I do too.
That
So do you
makes-
want to
that-
vote
yeah,
to do it now to?
I'll entertain a motion as such.
So I would make the motion that we approve the waiver of the second reading for resolution 2025-05, the affirmation of local government contracts for the fire protection emergency medical services.
I'll second
we all have to agree.
You have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
that.
Aye.
Opposed?
Now, if you didn't have all of it, what you do is put it back on the agenda for the following,
And we'd have a second reading,
the same thing.
whether everybody was in favor or not.
It would still pass if it was majority.
So in the future, we will have that second.
You should if you follow what I'm recommending now. Remember, at the first reading, somebody can vote against, but they can vote in favor of waiving the second, which is not an acknowledgement that you agree with the language. So the ordinance, let's just say, could say, we're condemning Chris's house and taking it by eminent domain. And you vote against it. But you could vote to approve it, the waiver of the second reading, which is not acknowledging that you agree to condemn Chris's house. That subtle distinction makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going on 2 hours and a
I
half.
have that last page.
I'm done.
And she's added one thing to the agenda. Let's hope this one's not a long.
Oh, this is for you.
Okay,
No, that's yours.
that's your
Unless
copy.
Oh, that's for me? Oh,
Unless
That's
What you gave him.
well, I gave it to him for you to sign because the one you have doesn't have a waiver on it. I don't know how Shannon wants to deal with that, so
She wants the paper.
If you want the waiver on it, just add it to it.
it's there. So if you can use that, circulate that. You'll have to punch holes in it.
Can I?
That's okay.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna move on to item number 6.
Would you like me to introduce it, Vicki?
Yes, engineering services agreement with VS Engineering. Yes, please.
Yes, so we received a proposal from VS Engineering to modify or amend the original contract that we have with them for on-call professional engineering consulting services that's been in place since 2021. It's been revised a couple of times in the past. This would be the third time. And it's mostly the revision is mostly because of the labor rates have changed. Now, what this is that it handles smaller scope jobs that we need our engineers to do, less complicated things where we need engineering services, typically less than $20,000. On larger cost service needs where we might require them to do technical specifications, engineers' estimates, quantities, construction inspection on a job, it will always be accompanied by a separate agreement. And those things will get written out and then voted on separately. We did that, for instance, for the County Road 150 gravity sanitary sewer project going on, because they had 7 different functions that they were doing, and it was like a $69,000 engineering cost that was covered by separate agreements. Same way with the CCMG projects that included East Hazel and First and Fifth Street. Now that was less than 20,000, but because they had complicated functions, they spelled it out into a separate agreement. The Weber Road water main extension was covered by a separate agreement, 28,000. So this is just for more of the minor, on-call stuff that we might need the engineers to do. Now on this project, I pointed out that we feel time is of the essence in that this for the 3 iron filter replacement project that needs to be rebid. We're relying on VS to do this. Kendallville Tank Manufacturing Company has like a 3-month lag from order to delivery. So that's weighing on our mind, and we want to, because would like to ideally get this done ASAP, but by the end of the year. And then other than that, I did talk, so Kurt has weighed in, and he can certainly amplify his thoughts there, but he had some concerns in this regard, that the agreement, he found some very structural needs, and I've suggested let's deal with those later. Let's move on in this small scale contract that we're entering into or revising with VS. And VS has said they have no problem with revising the main agreement later. And also Kurt recommended that we enter into an affidavit that with VS that would kind of cover us in some of just one of the points that Kurt brought out. And so they also said yes, with no problem, because Kurt pointed out they did it for Wolcottville. So that's the long and short from my perspective.
I agree, just so that you know, so you can speed up the conversation with everything Steve has said. And would also add that, just so that you know, public works projects have to have a licensed architect or an engineer by statute, just because of the nature of them. So I think that, moving forward with them, given the exigency of the need and the situation and their willingness to sign that Indiana law affidavit that we prepared, I would recommend we move forward.
Thank you. There should be the first one I signed somewhere that we're not using.
Yeah, we're not using this one.
Okay,
Well, I think. And Shannon said that she was just gonna add the last page.
Yeah.
Whatever she wants to do.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, any more conversation on VS Engineering? Terry, do you have anything?
I agree with Steve. And I'd like to see this move forward and then work with, in the future here with VS or whoever we want to do with the contract. VS is actually still on the project for 150, which they're probably somewhere around 80% done right
Okay. Wake up, guys. I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the non-exclusive engineering services agreement with DS Engineering to allow the project to move forward.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any other new business?
Dinner.
Let's move on to, Becky's line.
I'm starving.
Let's move on to approval of accounts payable and payroll vouchers dated February 6th and February 11th, 2025.
I thought
Jerry?
the vouchers looked pretty short this time. I move to approve the payroll vouchers.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move we adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good sport.
It's only twice a month, that's the only reason.
Thanks for your
It gives me the weekly
patience.